Are $30 GMRS radios any good? Let's take a look at another low-priced GMRS radio you should take a look at. Hi, and welcome to the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets that catch my eye. If you find this video helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Some of my highest viewed videos are about two-way radio transceivers, both ham and GMRS. In this video, we'll look at a fairly new GMRS radio from BaoFeng. Before we jump into that, if you've been waiting until the GMRS license fee reduction announced about a year ago went into effect, now's the time. The new fee structure with a $35 fee for 10-year GMRS license is now effective. Unlike ham licenses that only apply to the licensee, GMRS licenses apply to your extended family, so there's no longer any excuse to get one. Now, back to the radio. Oh, and please be sure to use the product links in the description below. BaoFeng is a Chinese radio manufacturer who specializes in lower cost or beginner level handheld radio transceivers. I have several BaoFeng radios for both ham and GMRS, and I'm happy with all of them. A couple of years ago, the FCC announced strict enforcement of regs that said manufacturers have to have their radios tested and be registered in the FCC's equipment database. That notice inspired several Chinese manufacturers to tighten emissions on their handheld radios to ensure compliance. BaoFeng appears to have been one of those companies that made improvements to meet compliance requirements. Their newer radios all have FCC registrations and seem to be better engineered than earlier versions. The GM15 Pro is a new GMRS model released early in 2022. Let's take a quick look at some of its key features. First, you can get the GM15 Pro in a variety of colors. This seems trivial, but depending on how you use your radio, color may make a difference to you. The old Henry Ford quote about customers getting any color they like, so long as it's black, doesn't apply to this model. Next, the radio has all 30 GMRS channels with the appropriate bandwidths assigned and no CTCSS codes pre-assigned. This was an annoyance with some of the earlier GMRS models from BaoFeng. This radio is also a dual band receiver, which allows you to program in receive-only channels in both the VHF and UHF bands. This also allows the radio to receive NOAA weather broadcasts. With 250 memory channels, you can program in tons of ham radio channels, marine channels, and some public service agency channels, assuming they're not using digital trunking systems. Scanning schemes in the radio's menus allow you to choose if and how you want the radio to scan. This also uses a banking system for do-it-yourself GMRS repeater channel programming. It also has drop-down channel choices within the 24 DIY channels to fully customize your DIY channel order. That means that there are 24 DIY channels arranged in 3 banks of 8 channels that allow you to program up to 4 repeaters on the same GMRS channel with different CTCSS or DCS codes, or you can use the drop-down menus to set specific GMRS channel frequencies into any DIY channel. I'll show you this when we look at the customer programming software, or CPS. You can also charge this radio using a Type-C USB cable. That means you can use the wall wart transformer and cable that comes with the set, or just plug the radio into any USB power source. I also tried this on a BaoFeng model CH8 charger I had from another radio, and it worked with that too. The last thing I'll mention now is that new menu setting that allows you to use both information lines on the display of the primary channel instead of showing both frequencies or channels on that display. You can set the sync setting to on and get the channel name, the channel frequency, and the channel number all displayed at the same time. That's particularly helpful when using DIY channels, as you'll be able to name the channel in the CPS. For example, you might have Shaw 725, BV 725, and Mom 550, each with different tones. You won't have to remember what channel corresponds to what repeater, as you'll have a name associated with it. Okay, let's start with the accessories that come with the kit. First is the user manual, and the user manual is pretty comprehensive, particularly the section that describes all of the menu items and what they do. There's a belt clip here that screws onto the back of the battery, not the radio, but the battery. The wall wart for the USB cable that comes right here, and a lanyard to put around the loop on the back of the battery if you'd like to keep it connected to your wrist. The other thing that you'll need that doesn't come with the kit, or it doesn't come with every kit, is a programming cable. I have a programming cable here. This one was about $15, and it has a good chip, not the prolific chip, but another chip here in the handle, and it works fine on a lot of different radios. So be careful when you do that. We'll talk a little bit more about that here when we discuss the CPS. Let's take a look at what you'll get with the radio itself. So let's zoom in on the radio here, and we'll do a quick tour. So the radio is small. It feels pretty good. It's obviously plastic. It feels pretty rugged. It's got the keypad here, the display here, speaker behind these little grills, and the microphone buried right in there. On this side, there's a little opening covered with a little flap to get to the Type K connector. This has got a 3mm or 3.5mm, 2.5mm connector. You can use these with external microphones, and of course, you're going to need to be able to plug the programming cable here. On this side, there are a couple of buttons that you can manipulate. We'll show you that here in a second when we turn on the radio. On the back is the battery. Obviously, it comes with the radio. I have it installed right now. On the top is a little LED here that lights up red when it's transmitting, green when it's receiving. The antenna is detachable. It screws on. You can see it's got the male end here and the socket or female end here, and it's a dual band antenna that comes with this radio since it's got dual band receiver. There's a flashlight right here, and then the on-off switch right there. So let's turn the radio on and look at a couple of the things that you'll be interested there.
Welcome. Channel mode.
Okay, so here you've got the radio on. I think I'll wait here a second, see if it goes out. Yeah, I think it's easier to see when it's not lit. It is pretty bright, and you can't control the brightness of the screen. But here you can see that I've got it in the sync mode, and so I've got the channel 15, the frequency for channel 15, and then over here it's got the channel number for channel 15. If I had given this a different name, the name would be where it says channel 15 in the large print. Here's the push to talk, the top button.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be the end.
Yeah, well, she can't.
I mean, her fans are already mad at her.
A quick press will give you the FM radio receiver, and then a long press will give you the siren. Again, you can set where that siren goes off on in the CPS that we'll look at here in a minute, And then on the bottom, press on that, will turn on the flashlight. It'll flash or be solid and then turn on. Now, to manipulate the menus here, again, I'll wait for the light to go off. There we go. And we'll try to get this where you can see it, because it's going to light up when the menu comes on. But it works like every other BaoFeng radio. And so you press the menu key, the green key.
Menu.
The menu comes up. It says squelch in this case, which is the first one. And then we can manipulate going up and down through the menu using the up and down buttons. And then we can press the menu again.
Squelch.
And then we can go raise it or lower it by pressing the up and down buttons. Press menu and it'll say confirm.
Confirm.
And then you can exit the menu by pressing the little return button or the cloud button here on the other side. Now, there are 41 menu items.
Menu.
We'll go down from squelch. That gives us to item 41, which is sync. I described that to you already. And then you can work your way through, reset, frequency hopping, which is kind of hard to understand. It really doesn't frequency hop in the way that most of us think of it. It does make changes to this CTCSS codes assigned to the various frequencies. However, and then if you just linger too long, then the menu will exit and you go back into the operating mode. And so, again, the menus work just the same as just every other BaoFeng radio that you've ever seen. So that's the menu operation. We'll talk more about the specifics of those items when we talk to the CPS here in just a second. So there's one other thing I want to point out to you. And that is this Radioddity GM30. Now, the GM30 is one of my favorite small, inexpensive GMRS radios. And as you can see, it's virtually the same. It's got the same numbers. It's got the same display. There's a little bit of difference here where the speaker grill is. It's got the same buttons on the side. And it has the belt clip and that screws onto the battery. So for all intents and purposes, these two radios are the same. So if you've been looking at a GM30 or you're looking at a BaoFeng GM15 Pro, they're pretty much the same radio. And both of them would be a good choice. So in this clip, let's take a look at the power output for this. I've got a little SW33 Plus pocket-sized power and VSWR meter here. I've got a dummy load of 50 ohms on the end of it there. So what you'll see here is the standing wave ratio. Because it's a 50 ohm load, not an antenna, it should be right at 1 or within a tenth or a hundredth of 1. And then the power. So let's press the push to talk and see what we get. So we've got a standing wave ratio of 1 to 1, basically 1 to 1.01. The forward power is 3.2 and the reverse power is 0. So that means our output is 3.2 watts. Let's change the display here. As I press the push to talk, you'll see it's there at about 3.2, 3.3, 3.25, 3.2. So that's the power output of this little guy. Again, pretty typical of radios in this price range. One of the things I've stopped doing on these reviews is range checks. These little handsets all have very similar range for the power they're outputting. As you saw earlier, the GM15 Pro is a pretty typical transceiver for those in this price range. The range is also heavily impacted by your geography. My range here in the Arizona desert with few plants and trees will likely be better than yours if you live in a forested region of Mississippi or Alabama. As with most of these inexpensive handheld transceivers, you can do most of the channel programming using the keypad on the front of the radio. I found that using the customer programming software or CPS is easier method though, especially if you're planning on programming a bunch of channels. The insides of this radio is basically the same as the Radiodity GM30 GMRS radio, so we're going to be using that CPS. You can get it on the Radiodity website as a free download. You can also try messaging BaoFeng via their Amazon page to see if they'll send you a link to the software. Currently, it's not compatible with Chirp. For those of you new to this, Chirp is a user-supported CPS product that links to lots of different radios. Since the GM15 Pro is fairly new, it hasn't made it into the Chirp system as of when I'm recording this video. Here's a quick look with what to expect when using the GM30 CPS. So here is the GM30 CPS that we're going to use for this GM15 Pro from BaoFeng, and this is how it comes up when you load the software. I'm using a FTDI chip for my programming cable. There are a couple of them out there. I'll leave links to some programming cables in the description below the video in case you don't have one. I have it connected to my radio, and my radio is turned on. And so at this point, I can go up here and look at some of these typical Windows menus. So in File, there's Save Open, Save As. There's Programs where we can look at the communication port, read and write to the radio, and so forth. View shows us what we're going to see. This is the tree bar over here, and this, of course, is the toolbar. And then we can cascade or tile the windows. So I'm going to start with Program. I'm going to go to my COM port, and it shows all the COM ports on the machine. I looked at my device manager before getting started, and I know my USB COM port is COM port 4, and so I'm going to pick COM port 4. If I have the wrong COM port, it's not going to work. So if you had a fault or a failure, checking your COM port is the first thing to look for. Next, I'm going to go back to Program, and I'm going to go to Read from the radio. This will give me the information that is currently in the radio. To get started, I'm going to click OK. The radio lit up. It's flashing. It's in program mode, it says on the display screen, and you can see that it's writing the information from the radio here in the little progress bar. I've got radio information here. We're not going to mess with this. This is the frequency band where the GMRS channels are, and so we're just going to close that. I'm going to go back to my channel displays here in the tree and open the channel display. And here you can see these are gray. These are the GMRS channels, and you're not allowed to make changes to those. It's a channelized system. You can change the names, but they're listed as channels 1 through 22. Here are channel 8 through 14, and you'll notice that these are narrow and low power. They're called the interstitial channels. And so these are also locked into this particular range. And then as we scroll down, we get into the DIY channels. And here are the banks of DIY channels. And so if we go down, you can see DIY1 is 462.55. And if you scroll down to DIY9, it's again 462.55, and then 9 more, it's down here. And so those are the 4 banks of channels that are available for you. You can make changes here with this newest version of the software, and so if you want to keep it there, fine, but you can make changes here and pick other channels. And so if you had 10 repeaters that were on 462.55, you could add 10 repeaters right there. So let me change this channel, and then when I click out of it, you'll notice that it changed over here to the proper offset. And so now I've got 2 channels that are at 467.575. So that's kind of a handy little thing. So there are 4 banks of channels here, but we can change those to any of the repeater channels that are allowed. You're not going to make an input here. Those offsets are computed automatically. Here you can make changes to the name, and you can make, it's like 6 characters you can use. We can put in different codes for the repeaters. We can change wide to narrow. These things are all things that you can alter. There's really no point in it because you want high power and wide. That's what GMRS uses. You can add it to the scan list or not. And then if you want to get a display for the channel that has all of this in one, you can go and double click this double caret over here, and it'll give you a channel edit that'll give you all the information where you can make changes to include adding or not the scan, the CTCSS, or scrolling down into all of the digital codes here. So either way, working your way across or giving yourself a little box to make all the programming channels, you're able to do all of those things. And so this gives you the additional 24 channels. They go from 31 to 54. Now, when you get down here, if you want to make changes, you can add any VHF or UHF frequency, but you're not going to get anything here because it isn't authorized to broadcast in that area. So if I wanted to put a ham channel in 146.520, I could do that. This then opens up. I can put in codes. This channel doesn't use codes, but if it was a ham repeater and you needed to use codes to listen, you could add those. The power is adjustable, but again, it doesn't transmit, so it doesn't matter. And then you can also add or subtract it from your scan list. Now, to get rid of these extra channels, just highlight it, delete it, click out of the box, and then all the rest of this goes away. And so you can see as we scroll down to the bottom, you get up to 250 channels, of which the first 54 are GMRS channels. So that gives you a lot of capability to add a variety of channels in with the CPS. And because you're using the keyboard, it's just a whale of a lot easier. You can also go into your general settings, and they will transfer to the radio. So you can change the word in the welcome screen to hi, or your call sign if you wanted that. If you wanted to use the Vox or not. The squelch level, I find 3 works pretty well, so that's where I have it set. The alarm mode will broadcast an alarm if you have it set, and I don't want to broadcast alarms on GMRS. I'm not part of a group that would come rescue me, so I have it set to on-site, which means it just has a little siren that comes over the speaker of the radio, and all of these other things that you're going to get here. Here on channel A gives the name and number, channel B the name and number. That's going to get overwritten with your keyboard menu for the sync mode, which I've already showed you. So this is a little different, but again, it all works very easily. So with all of these changes made then, we can go back, and what I would recommend that you do is save this to your computer, and you can see I've saved this already. I use a date, I use the year first and the month and then the day to my computer, and then I go back to my program, and then I write to the radio, and then again I hit OK. The screen on my radio illuminated, it says program. The little light on top of the radio is flashing very quickly as it accepts the data, and now I've got it at 100%. And so now the radio's channels represent all of the channels here in this display with their associated CTCSS codes and customized frequencies for these do-it-yourself channels. So far, I'm pretty impressed with the GM15 Pro. For a $30 HT, it feels solid and its reception is similar to other models I have in this price range. I really like the USB charging, as I can charge it in my vehicle or use a fold-up solar panel when out camping. Of course, power packs will work too. If you're just getting started in GMRS or are looking to add an HT to your go bag or everyday carry radio, this little HT from BaoFeng is sure to please. Hey, if you found this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Click the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching.